Expects us also to believe that he has no direct or indirect involvement with the Trudeau Foundation, even though its donors pay for his vacations. He chose two of its former directors to head up investigations into foreign interference. The Trudeau Foundation received Beijing-based donations, which his brother processed. Mr. Speaker, now we learn that the Trudeau Foundation is holding meetings in his office. Did he not know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The meeting that took place was between public servants in a government building. It wasn't with the Prime Minister, but I can understand that the Leader of the Opposition, as usual, is looking to swing a wide stick and doesn't seem to care what he hits, Mr. Speaker. There is constant beret of attacks and mischaracterization of information. His interest, again and again, is to disrupt and be partisan rather than provide productive solutions to the issues that face this country right now.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So let's get this straight. The Trudeau Foundation's donors paid for the Prime Minister's vacation, but he didn't know about that. The Trudeau Foundation supplied the two independent investigators to look into the interference by Beijing. He didn't know about that either. The Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, organized and orchestrated by his brother, but he didn't know about that. And now we know there were meetings in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials and the Trudeau Foundation. Once again, are they really expecting Canadians to be dumb enough not to believe that he didn't know about that either?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Sometimes I stay up at night and I wonder how the Leader of the Opposition got to the position of recommending to people to opt out of inflation by recommending cryptocurrency as a solution. And now I understand why, Mr. Speaker. Listening.
I just want to wait till everybody's ready and we can get on with question period. The Honourable Government House Leader, please proceed.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's because if you listen to that convoluted mess that the Leader of the Opposition tossed out there that was completely nonsensical, and I'll just take one for a point. Yes, the Prime Minister, as I've said on many occasions, took a vacation with his family over Christmas and stayed at a friend's house. By the way, that friend had been his family friend his entire life. He had been at that residence when he was 1 year old. The mischaracterizations continue.
The Leader of the Opposition.
So the Prime Minister really wants Canadians to believe that he received payments for his vacation from donors to the Trudeau Foundation, but that he didn't know. He wants people to believe that the Trudeau Foundation received donations from Beijing, facilitated by his brother, but he didn't know, and wants people to believe that the two investigators into foreign interference are from the Trudeau Foundation. If there was a meeting with the Trudeau Foundation in the Prime Minister's office with his top officials, and we're expected to believe that he didn't know. Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister take the Canadians for fools? Mr. Speaker, it's clear that the member across the way wants there to be a link between the Foundation and the Prime Minister, but there was no connection, no link, either direct or indirect, between the Foundation and the Prime Minister. That's been clear. There's been no connection for over 10 years. It's very clear. Unfortunately, though, the Leader of the Opposition is looking to create division and partisanship. He's not really looking for facts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, we were wondering why China was so interested in getting close to the Trudeau Foundation, and we got the answer this morning, because in 2016, when China was signing a big check to the Trudeau Foundation, there was a meeting of the Trudeau Foundation at the Prime Minister's office with not one, not two, not three, but 5 deputy ministers. Yet the Prime Minister continues to insist that for 10 years he hasn't had any ties to the Foundation. But is he aware of what happens in his own office, or does he take Quebecers for fools? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, there was an independent meeting with public servants, officials, and the Foundation. The Prime Minister had no ties to that meeting, no information about it. The question is ridiculous. The implication is ridiculous. Neither China nor any other country has had an influence over our government or influenced any of our officials. Our officials are loyal to Canada. That's very clear, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the doors to power are wide open. The ties to power are wide open for the Trudeau Foundation. Most people couldn't dream of having preferential access to the Prime Minister's office, access to 5 top officials. This is why we can't trust the Prime Minister to really get to the bottom of China's interference and meddling with our institutions. We need transparency. We need to get to the bottom of things. So when will there be a public, independent inquiry? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister has stated on many occasions, he has no direct or indirect ties to the Foundation. That is evident. We can repeat that again and again. We need facts, and facts are necessary in this House in order to maybe the member across the way would like to write stories, become a novelist. That could be another career. But the facts are different from the stories, Mr. Speaker.